Hey there. I'm here with my sister, Emily Guy Birkin. She does not use a hyphen.
And I am here with my sister, Tracie Guy Decker. She does use a hyphen.
I do. It's true. And together, this is Lightbringers, where we illuminate the deeper meaning of the crime-solving devil TV show. And yeah, we are overthinking it.
So much.
So today we're going to talk about 405 and 406, Expire Erect, and Orgy Pants To Work. And we actually had planned to record this like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks, whatever, some time ago. And now we're recording. So we both had to rewatch our rewatch so that we could record, which is an interesting phenomenon. Hasn't happened to us before.
It's like when I do the laundry and then forget to put it in a dryer, so I gotta wash it again.
Because it's mildewy?
Yeah.
That's a yucky metaphor. Thank you for that.
But it's relatable.
What's interesting about these two episodes, I'm thinking, is now that I've rewatched, especially Expire Erect, like especially the way it starts, it's this sort of absurdist and like funny, but sort of like funny, weird, and a little bit funny, haha. But actually, there's some really deep, dark contemplation happening in these two episodes, which I think is kind of interesting. You have a coworker there with you who is purring into the mic, which is kind of adorable, and I will probably leave it in. But I just want to name for our watchers, for our viewers, that
if you're wondering what that sound,
there's a cat off screen.
I do want you to know he's right here. He's right at the mic, and he's like sniffing at it while purring. But I do want to point out that this asshole, whose name is the Dude, by the way, it's Lebowski, the Dude Birkin. The Dude killed a rabbit yesterday, and so he's real pleased with himself, and I'm real not. So. Yes. So when it comes to Expire Erect, I think that, getting into that deeper stuff, at the end, when Chloe talks to Amenadiel, because she was like, I kind of want to just make sure that Eve is okay, that she's, not going to be trying to destroy the world or she's not secretly evil or anything. Because like she saw that Eve really does appear to be good for Lucifer. And the fact that the response that Eve has when Chloe says to her, like, have you seen his face? Does it scare you? And she's like, why would it? And like, that is the most accepting possible response. And then when Eve says, and it's here and in the next episode, where she's like, no one ever asked me what I wanted until him. Except for him. And recognizing the power of that and it's completely understandable why Eve would pine for him, and slip back into her old bones.
Look at him.
Well, yeah, that too. Yeah, if he were my ex, there would definitely be some pining.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
But it's understandable why she would spend millennia, and to the point of where she realized, like, you know what, this is unsustainable for me to stay in heaven because this is so boring. Like, Adam doesn't love me and never will, and like all he wants to do is sit and watch ESPN, and I want to do stuff and experience stuff. So the fact that she, was like, all right, I'm going to see if I can get out of heaven and like get back into my old bones, which is kind of freaking cool. So,
it's interesting that you bring up that final conversation with Amenadiel, because one of the things that I noticed in my rewatch was that earlier in the episode, Amenadiel was sort of having the inverse thought about Eve and Lucifer, that she's not good for him because she's going to erase the growth that he's had. And so, and I actually think DB Woodside kind of played that in that final conversation with Chloe, because it almost felt like he was holding something back.
Yes. Yeah.
When she was
he
like,
did say, I hope so.
When she said something like, he seems good, she seems good for him. Eve seems good for Lucifer. And he was like, I hope you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, Amenadiel doesn't think that Eve is good for Lucifer.
Yeah.
And so I think that was, so it was interesting to have that conversation happen with Chloe and Amenadiel specifically, not Linda, right? Like, not Maze, but Amenadiel, who had expressed concerns about this relationship and what it might mean for Lucifer. Also, as an aside, overthinking it, since in our last episode, I went into my long rabbit hole about Eve's name. And then there's that back and forth where DB Woodside as Amenadiel keeps going, Eve! And finally, Ellis's Lucifer is like, I know her name.
Yeah.
And I'm like, actually, there I am sitting in my living room overthinking it. Anyway, that just like tickled me after our last conversation.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, I had that thought as well because of what you had gone into with that with her
that
name. Was her name. The thing that I think is interesting is the next episode does seem to indicate that Eve is bad for him. But I'm not sure how I feel about that. Now, like in the next episode, what we have happen is she encourages him to like accept his devil nature and work and punish the human trafficker piece of crap who they write to be so completely lacking in any sympathy.
He's zero
empathy,
redeeming
anything. No redeeming qualities.
And they had to do that so that they don't lose us.
Yes.
They don't lose our sympathy for the devil.
Yes.
See what I did there? They had to write that guy whose name is escaping
Julian
me
McCaffrey.
Thank you. They had to write Julian as like rotten as possible and smarmy and like arrogant and entitled so that they don't lose our sympathy when they leave us knowing that Lucifer is about to torture him.
Yes. Yeah.
It was bad. Like watching it, not the second rewatch, but the first rewatch 2 weeks ago when we thought we were gonna connect, I had forgotten some of the details, and so when they get to the ship and then I see the women, like the cowering women coming off the ship, and I was like, oh, it's people, like it was Soylent Green or something, and it really it's
there's a visceral
he's really rotten. He didn't just kill poor boring Gary.
Yeah.
It's so I want to come back to something you said about that this second episode suggests that Eve is bad for him, which I think it's really interesting because I actually think the writers are trying to problematize for us by spending all this time and having Chloe say, do you like who you are? Do you like what you're doing? And like this question of, if I want to be a better person, but I've never been that person, is it somehow disingenuous? Is it even real? Is the way that Lucifer says it, which we spent a lot of time in this, all 6 seasons, thinking about what is real, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
But I actually think that there is there is at least some ambivalence on the part of our writers that they want us to feel about Lucifer. I mean, because in some way, I mean, Eve is right. It was the bad man's fault that Joan died. It was not Lucifer's. And also, if Lucifer had made a different choice earlier in the episode, Joan wouldn't be dead.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's definitely like a push and pull on whether or not Eve's version of who Lucifer is, bad.
Well, and I get part of what I'm reacting to also in Orgy Pants to Work is Linda says to him, like, you're bifurcating yourself. You're trying to be two things at once. And I kind of, I recognize what they're doing in the episode with Lucifer, and he clearly cannot do both things at once, all in like that. But I reject the idea that you can't be both of those things.
Agreed.
And they talk about it a little bit. They get into it just a teensy little bit when Lucifer and Ella are interviewing people at the nudist colony before Chloe joins them. And Annie is the name of the like sweet old lady who is talking, like, knew Gary well and saying like, oh, he found his place and his people here and like, you know, and he was getting involved in all the community stuff, and
The
he was
book
going to help
club
us
and the
with
chess club and the
yeah, and he was going to help
Helping
us
us with
all
our
with our
taxes.
taxes.
Mhm.
And he's like, oh, so he was a dedicated accountant and a nudist? And she's like, we come from all walks of life, you know, we've got, you know, teachers, judges, you know, and so there's a little bit of like, yeah, it is possible to have a outside the norm lifestyle and a perfectly within the norm job. And that's something like, and you can go all in on both of them. Like poor Gary had gone all in. Like, he found the nudist colony. He was just like, I finally feel comfortable. And he joined the chess club and the book club and made friends.
Helping
and
people with their taxes.
yeah. And so that to me, like, not that I like, this is a great episode, and it's not that I wish that they had done anything different, but I feel like the message of the episode is like, no, you can't have it all. And it's like, well, I kind of reject that. In the same way, like, when I first started working with children, when I was worked at the Boys and Girls Club when I was out of college. And there would be things that I did on the weekend where I'm like, I can't believe they let me around children. And like, it just being a normal young adult. And like, I don't want people to feel like you can't contain multitudes. You know, you can't be like, in the same way that we first see Eve in that episode, and she's like, hydrate. No, hostess rules, you know, so she can be like, she's taking care of her guests while being a dominatrix,
Right.
while saying nobody passes out unless they want to. I mean, like,
Right.
you can be, it's a both end. And so that to me is where I struggle with this episode, because it's saying that Lucifer can't do this. And like, I don't see why he can't.
Yeah.
If there were like some differences, like if he just made some concessions in both parts of his life, you know,
like, wore actual trousers to work,
and had like, you know, standing dates rather than like, we're spending every day together all the time.
Free for all. Yeah. Because he even says to Maze, this is a school night party. Like, you should come back on the weekends.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's interesting too, because I do think that in some ways the writers acknowledge that when Chloe realizes he's asleep and she's like, I want you to be happy, but I hate the way you're happy. I think there is sort of an acknowledgement of like, it's not that he can't have that lifestyle. It's that she's uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Which she even recognizes is kind of not her place. Although in some ways it's because she's jealous, which she also admits, because she loves him. But yeah, it's interesting and complicated.
Yeah. And so, and like, I appreciate them taking this on. I just, when Linda is so often the voice of reason, I wish there had just been like another sentence in there about like, you're bifurcating your life right now. Like, you say you're having it all, but you know, it doesn't look like it. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's not happening. You know, like that's what I wish there had been something in there, just because like, so often people will choose the normal path.
I think so. Here's the thing. What I think was missing, especially from this show, right? That and Eve keeps making the point about nobody asks what I want, right? Like, part of what is unsustainable about Lucifer's having it all is that he is trying to make both of those women happy with his behavior. As opposed to like, what does he want? Right. And that's why he spends all that time, like why she says, you just spent the past several minutes sending apology gifts to both of them. I feel like that's actually what is unsustainable. Is that he's trying to be 100% the man that Chloe wants and 100% the man that Eve wants. But those two men are not the same man. And so that's really what's unsustainable. So it's not that you can't have it all, or even that you can't like have things that, you know, two things that actually don't touch except in you. They don't touch in time. But they can't touch in time. Right. And that's where, like, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how I would write it differently, but I do think that really is what and that's the problem, and which is interesting from this show, which is all about desire.
Yes, well,
desire,
particularly since that's what he does is he tries to fulfill the desires of the people around him. So that actually very much fits rather than his own desires. Yeah, Which, you know, the only time he actually speaks to his own desires at that point is when he says he wants to be a better man. Work makes him want to be a better man, which work is a euphemism for Chloe. I understood. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that there's layers. There's layers here. That's why we do this.
Also a bunch of dick jokes. So
many dick jokes. Can I just say, did you notice
the yellow squash in the fruit bowl?
Well, they thought a banana would be just too obvious.
Made a banana joke a couple episodes ago.
Yes, yeah. So can I just point out? Did you notice that Expire Erect is their version of Die Hard?
No.
Expire, die, erect, hard.
Oh.
And it is also a kidnapping situation.
Yeah. Huh. That's not one of my. That's another propaganda movie.
I have seen it.
It's not one of mine.
Yeah,
I've seen it more than you have.
Oh, have you? Yeah, I've only seen it once, and I just yeah. So, but I that to me seemed like someone was just like, oh, this is going to be hilarious.
Yeah.
So, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that happened in Expire Erect. To start, the car show stuff. So I am married to an automotive engineer who is a dyed-in-the-wool car geek. His first car was a vintage Volkswagen Beetle that he fixed up himself. My first car was a Volkswagen Beetle, which I hired someone to fix up. And he was 2 hours late to his to pick up his like homecoming date in the Beetle because he was trying to get it running, and she was not impressed. And it still didn't pass like state inspection requirements. In any case, I know that scene a little bit better than most, and that felt about right. The thing that I will tell you that is absolutely correct was Kev, the guy who was their suspect, who got tired.
Right.
This is the best pun.
That was a good pun.
That's the best.
I think that might have killed him, though.
I know, like considering how hard it hit him, but all right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but Kev, he's like, you should check out the scary guy. Like, I don't know his name. I can't tell you what he looked like. He drives a 1992 Geo Metro
in this color,
whatever green. And I was like, that is spot on. My husband does not know the names of our neighbors, but he can tell you exactly what they each drive.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was well done, writers. So I appreciated that. I had this realization this time around. So we're in this portion of the show where the first person they interview turns out to be the murderer. Although that does not happen in Orgy Pants. Other things happen in Orgy Pants, but that does not happen in Orgy Pants. So I was thinking, like, what the heck was Marco doing, like, waiting around so he could be interviewed? And then, like, that doesn't make any sense. And then realizing, oh, wait, no, he wants to eventually be on their radar so that they can help him find Leona. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I'll give that, because it was just like Leona at some point says he always was tougher than he was smart. I'm like, yeah, but then like, okay, well, yeah, no, if he wouldn't have been on their radar, and that made it more likely that blah 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 blah. But how long did it take him to set up that bomb? Like, it couldn't have taken him that long, because how did he know where Detective Decker would be?
Yeah, that's a good point. Although Lucifer was with her at the crime scene. So,
although he wasn't with her at the crime scene where he met her, where Marco met her. Because that was at the very beginning when they're like,
oh, right. Because she calls him because she needs the car. Right. You're right. Yeah. Why did he? Why was it at Lux?
So the only thing I could think of is that he followed her there, and it doesn't, like, he had everything all set up. All he had to do was like pop in a couple things.
Yeah, because it was in a box.
Yeah,
we just had to drop the box.
Yeah. So, is my theory. So, like, he got there a little, like, about the same time that Chloe did, and just boop, all right, now.
Yeah, that works. Especially like it wasn't like hidden really. It was just up at the top. It was just up
someplace
on the landing.
Yeah, little unobtrusive, not hidden. So, the other thing I was like, what if he had eaten the Southwest sandwich without saying anything to Chloe about it?
In that one, why is Dan calling the shots?
Where's the lieutenant?
I mean,
yeah.
They must have replaced Pierce, and it wouldn't have been with Dan.
He's still kind of demoted. I mean, he's yeah. It's economy of characters.
Yeah.
I also, like, I struggle to believe that Dan would let Leona in to talk to Marco.
I think because Chloe and Ella were in there.
Yeah.
He might have accepted it. Like,
yeah. Well, and after the conversation of the ends justify the means things with Maze,
and specifically, like, when he said, like, people I care about, and you know what I mean? Like, so I think they did set us up that he maybe wasn't in his most strategic thinking because we're talking about Chloe.
It's more the, like, but why is he calling the shots? And when the SWAT team go, like, what the are you doing? Excuse me.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
So
yes, agreed. I don't know why he would have been calling the shots at all. So, yes.
Yeah. I feel like someone in the chain of command would have been like, absolutely not. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
So,
or at least put her in protective gear.
Something. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So we're focusing a lot on Orgy Pants, but I'm going to come back to it again. So at the beginning, we realized there's been like a month or more between the last one and the last episode.
Yeah, I go out of town for a few months, and you 50 Shades of betray me.
Right. Well, she says a few minutes, and he's like, he's been gone for a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, or in months, because then she's surprised that Linda's.
Oh yeah, because Linda, it's got to be at least 3 or 4 months for Linda to have grown.
Yeah. So okay. So there's a small little subplot about Maze kind of grappling with her maternal wounds, her early maternal wounds, right? You know it's coming, Em. Lilith is the mother of the demons, the Lilim, of whom there are thousands.
They are legion.
Who's their father?
I think it's like parthenogenesis.
it's clear from the Jewish Apocrypha, Lucifer is their father.
I'm not okay with that.
I know.
Maybe all
kinds of gross.
All except Maze. Maze was the first, and just because she does look exactly like Lilith, which we'll know later.
She does.
And so I think she was just like parthenogenesis.
I think our raiders don't want to deal with the fact that he has a millennial-long sexual relationship with his kid.
It's not, though, because he's so weirded out by his mom.
I know. But, like, our writers, they just don't answer. They never tell us who.
She just creates her own children. That's what Lilith did. That is my headcanon, and you cannot take it away from me.
Okay, but if we're overthinking this, and I am the resident, like, biblical scholar, such as I am.
Well, what was okay, since they also bring it up, the Lilith and Adam.
Yeah.
What is the background on that? Because the first time, I will tell you, the first time I ever heard of Lilith was when I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And Mr. Beaver explains to the Pevensey children, like, aren't all humans sons of Adam and daughters of Eve? He's like, no, Adam had a first wife, Lilith, and, her children are not. And I was just like, what is he making up? I've never heard this before.
So if you look at Genesis, there are two creation stories that get kind of like shoved together. Mm-hmm. The first one says, in the King James, male and female created he them. Mm-hmm. God created humans, a boy and a girl. The boy was Adam. The girl was Lilith. So they were created as equal. And then later it says the thing about the rib, that God made Adam a helpmate out of Adam's rib, because it is not good, because God saw that it was not good for Adam to be alone. So it's really, I mean, if you kind of like peel back the layers, it appears to be two separate stories that got shoved together into the same book. To explain the discrepancy, there's this whole story got spun off about that first equally created female, Lilith. And the story that got created because they were like, well, what happened to her, right?
Well, where did the name Lilith come from?
That I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know. But I will do research because she comes up again. So I'll do research. Stay tuned, folks. But what I do know is the ancient rabbis, the sages, were like, well, what happened? And they spun off this whole story where, because they were created as equal, Adam was like, lie down, I'm going to get on top of you. And she was like, no, I won't be on top of you. And he was like, "Ah!" And because she wouldn't submit, I mean, they were still talking about, like, basically either missionary or woman astride. They were talking about sex. But because she wanted to be on top, like, she got banished, and she was like, y'all. All y'all. I'm out.
Wait. So, because she wanted to make sure that her own pleasure was important, Adam freaked out.
And she left. She left the garden. She went and married the devil.
Okay. But the what were the things that Eve was talking about in this episode about, like, that Adam would, be like, oh, Lilith, she something conquered the beasts or something.
Oh, well, there's this whole story. Well, because she goes off and she becomes the consort to the devil, like, she has this whole, like, mythology around her.
Okay,
of power, but I don't know, like, those specific things didn't ring any bells for me.
Okay. Now, the other question I have for you then is the way that it's written in this show is that Eve didn't understand sex until Lucifer tempted her, is the way that they've written it.
I think it's more that she didn't understand pleasure. Her own.
Okay.
I mean, which is in line with the way that the rabbis understood the argument between Lilith and Adam. Because Adam wanted her to be on top.
Yeah. Well,
And
because
Lilith was like, no.
Eve does
But then
say
when
it.
Eve was made, she was like, yeah, okay. I'll lie down.
The thing is that I was just, because Eve says you never forget your first, but I guess it doesn't necessarily mean first time. It might just mean first orgasm.
Or first love, or first,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
That was in an earlier episode. That wasn't in this.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
That was when she was talking to the jewelry guy.
Bashir. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't in one of these episodes. I was just like thinking about that. Okay. All right. So.
And it's possible. It is a possible reading because the story, they're living in the garden. God says you can eat of any tree except for that one in the center of the garden. And that was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
And after that, they realized they were naked and put on the fig leaves.
Exactly. Exactly. After that, they realize they're naked and they hide.
Yeah. Because they're ashamed of their nakedness.
Which they were not prior to eating the apple. So one could potentially read that there was not, in fact, sexual intimacy between the two of them prior to these. I would have to look it up. But my recollection of the Genesis story is that Adam doesn't know his wife until after they are exiled, and then Cain and Abel are conceived. Yeah. That's my recollection.
Okay. So the knowledge of the tree of knowledge was really the knowledge of body dysmorphia.
It's specifically the knowledge of good and evil.
And I know. And that's where a lot of like really regressive bullshit comes from about how like sex is sinful because that's what Adam and Eve were ashamed of.
Yeah. So, it's. I think it's complicated. I think you could read it many ways. I just pulled down the text. This is the JPS translation. So when after, so Eve is named. Chaya is named because she was the mother of all living, but that was before. Like that happens at 3:20, but then that's before they've been cast out. And at 3:22, Genesis 3:22, Adonai says, now the man, that is Adam, has become like one of us, knowing good and bad. What if he should stretch out his hand and take also from the tree of life and live forever? Okay. So Adonai banished him from the Garden of Eden to till the soil from which he was taken, drove the man out, stationed east of Eden the cherubim with the fiery sword to guard the way. 4:1, Genesis 4:1. Now the man knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain. So I don't believe that we actually see. I mean, like the text. There are lots of holes in the text. That's why we have
there are holes you could drive a semi through.
That's why we have midrash. But they did not. I do not believe that they had. The text does not say that they had sex until they've been banished.
Yeah, and that's what to. I guess I think this is an Expire Erect also. Yeah, it is. When Amenadiel says to Eve, "Are you going to hurt Lucifer? Have you heard him?" And she's like, "Only if he asks nicely." And she's like, and Amenadiel points out, like, he killed your son. And what's interesting is until that moment, the show is not presenting her as the mother of Cain and Abel. Like they're very much presenting her as the first
the garden,
the garden version of Eden, of Eve. Excuse me. And her explanation seems interesting and also very cold. Like she calls Abel her sweet child, and that Charlotte Richard reminded her of Abel, and that Cain only got what was coming to him. And even though she refers to Abel as her sweet kid, my sweet Abel, there's nothing very maternal there for either of them.
No. Well, that doesn't fit with the party girl.
No,
they want the book that show wants her to be.
Yeah. And it's also fair. She didn't have to be maternal. It's interesting because that's not how another show that was more committed to certain viewpoints would have. I spend a lot of time watching YouTube shows and listening to podcasts and stuff like that about fundamentalist Christianity. And if they were in charge of the show, which obviously they would never be, but it would be very important to them to show her as endlessly maternal. I find that interesting because we just don't think of her as being a mother at all.
It wouldn't work for the role that this character plays in this mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't work.
Yeah.
She needs to be the foil to Chloe.
Mm-hmm.
Chloe's straight-laced. Chloe's maternal. She even says, I go to PTA meetings.
It's true.
You go to orgies.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Chloe is the mother in this love triangle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And Eve is the whore. Right? If we have the maiden mother crone, and then there's the whore and the witch. Eve is the whore in this little thing, and Chloe's the mother. That's even sort of her attitude toward Lucifer. I want you to be happy.
Yeah,
Eve is good for him. It's still a caretaking. I mean, that's what Amenadiel says to her. After all you've been through, you're most worried about the best interests of the people you care about. I mean, if that isn't sort of our archetypal
very true
mother characteristic, I don't know what is. Yeah.
Well, and there's something also very young about Eve.
Yep. Which is why I say she's the whore and not the witch.
Yes.
Right? The witch is me at sort of the postmenopausal or the menopausal, perimenopausal, postmenopausal age, no longer childbearing.
But honey, you can be a whore if you want to be.
Thanks. But a witchy whore.
Yes.
Right. But specifically, my sexuality is only someone at my stage of life, past childbearing age. My sexuality is only for pleasure, but because I cannot procreate because I'm too old for that shit. But I'm not a crone yet. Eve, the way that Barlavi plays her and the way that our writers write her is not at that phase. She's not even she's not between mother and crone. She's between maiden and mother. Even though officially she's a mother, she's that sort of in between space between maiden and mother. And so that space is a whore. Which is part of why she she lives into it. They write into her that all of that, she's up for anything, including, she expresses sexual appreciation of Maze repeatedly. She kisses Ella to calm her down. So it's not even just the heterosexual sex, which is all the more so for that subversive role, who does not allow her sexuality to be only controlled by procreation.
And it fits. I mean, it fits with considering the way that they've written her is I was literally made from someone else for that person. I'm a subset of another human being, and you told me I could be more than that. And so I'm being all the more than that I can be, which also feels very young. It's the when someone breaks out of the straight-laced rules of their childhood and kind of
called sowing the wild oats.
But it also, my first watch through, I got frustrated because I really like the character of Eve. And I mentioned before, Inbar Levy does an amazing job with a thankless role, in that she makes her likable. You really are rooting for her, even when she's encouraging Lucifer
torture someone.
Yes. Yes.
You're still like, I'll give it to her.
Yeah. She's got a point here.
I mean, they did write that guy into it.
Oh my goodness. So also I mentioned this when we weren't able to record last time, but like that guy has a punchable face, like Martin Shkreli. Yeah. So like Martin Shkreli, I don't think his punchable face ever comes off. Like I think that's just, I think his face would have looked punchable when he was 6. I don't know. I mean, the entitlement. Well, that's what I think the entitlement's been there since birth.
The pharma bro. He was the pharma bro.
Yes. He was the one who made increased the price of insulin, medicine, I think, or something.
Yeah, it was a diabetes.
Just for profit.
Just because he could.
Yeah. So anyway, I looked up this actor. I was just like, how, like, did they cast someone who just has a punchable face? Or is that something that you can act your way into? Some of it is the way he looks. So I looked up this actor, and he's not been a whole bunch of stuff, but I found a trailer for an independent movie he was in, and he's acting that punchable face. Like he was playing a sympathetic character in the movie I saw the trailer for, and I'm just like, holy cow! Like, and I kept having to remind myself it was the same guy because I'm like, it doesn't look anything like him.
It's that smirk.
It's the smirk.
Yeah.
So I got sidetracked because of the punchable face.
I was talking about witches and whores.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. I remember getting frustrated the first time through because I liked Eve, and when she's like, just sitting waiting for Lucifer, and Maze is like, "Come on, let's get out of here." It's because you don't have a life. You need a life. And when they get back in, they've clearly had a wonderful time because they have a giant teddy bear and a chainsaw and a sash.
And they're laughing. But Lucifer still isn't home. And I can remember feeling that way as a teenager, whereas like, you know what, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. And isn't he going to be mad and miss me? And like, nope. Still isn't there. And that really bothered me that she wasn't able to get past that. But it actually really fits with how she's written, and that she's saying like, she was created to be something for someone. And so even when she breaks out to be herself, she's still going to kind of latch on to that role because it's the only one she's known. Yeah.
But yeah, that's like she's bouncing on that ball in the swimming pool. Like, I'm sure I'll be back any minute. Just like, oh, honey, no, don't do that. Go have fun with Maze. Go create a life for yourself.
Yeah.
I do wonder, like, the gifts that he got, the printer for Chloe. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe if she'd been complaining about the precinct printer.
I guess I don't
know.
I mean, it made for an interesting moment when Eve got it, and I was like, "Oh, this guy," and like plugged it in. But it didn't work for me either.
Same thing with the sex doll. It's just like, but that at least I think Eve would appreciate that. I don't know.
It honestly made more sense than a printer.
True. Very true. Very true.
So yeah. Well, we have been talking for a while, so that thought, and then let's move on to fluff.
Remiel and Amenadiel. So
how did that end?
That's the thing. I actually, last time when we planned it, I was just like, wait a minute, how did that end? Did I forget how it ended? And it's because it doesn't end.
He tells her that and then it cuts away. And the next time we see him, he's showing up at Chloe's house.
Yeah. No, he doesn't show up at Chloe's house. That's in Expire Erect. Remiel is in Orgy Pants.
Oh, okay.
And so we just don't see a solution.
Don't see them again. So maybe it'll be in Devil Is as Devil Does.
Yeah. And it is. Yeah, there's I know that Remiel's like a 2 or 3 episode arc. Yeah. It's interesting seeing another celestial because we see so few of them, and seeing that she's the younger hero worshiper that Azrael is to Lucifer is kind of cool.
You know what's interesting too is that so she's got a scar on one cheek, and in one of our recent episodes, Amenadiel says we were born fully formed adults, like there's never been an angel baby before, which they needed for the moment so that, you know, Linda could have her freak out and whatever. But actually doesn't jibe, I feel, with other things that they've said. Like, didn't they even, like, when we met Uriel, didn't the goddess say something like, remember when you all were kids? You know, like, and he was always chasing after you? Like,
she might have said younger. She might have said
it maybe, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it. But I was left with the impression that they did have childhoods of a sort. Anyway, and that sort of like hero worship about your big brother or older brother. Big brother doesn't make sense if you were born. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, the other thing, like the scar, which I guess the actress just has a scar, but like it bothered me a little bit because they're celestials.
They make it clear that she's a huntress.
But she should heal unless it was another celestial that
unless the celestial stag can because it's
I guess
it's a Silver
maybe
City
stag in heaven.
Yeah.
All right.
You got your overthinking problems. I got your overthinking solutions.
Mental furniture rearranging. Celestial stags can injure
celestials.
Angels.
Angels. Yes.
I
wonder what it does to the human souls. I mean, do they not have they don't have a corporeal body?
Like Azrael's blade.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So you're not allowed to go to the woods outside of the Silver City because the celestial stags can destroy you. So
all right,
there you go.
Fluff? You got some fluff besides the squash?
I want to just an appreciation post for both Tom Ellis and Amy Garcia's asses.
I second.
Damn. Also, her hair, because I have pretty long hair, and I know her. Like, I think that must have been some hair extensions because I don't think it cover
her boobs
completely. So, and she's got long hair, but I don't think she's got hair halfway down her torso. Long hair. So,
I want to. Shit. Oh, I want to talk about when he is sleeping in the car and she wakes him up. He says, "Fetch me the goat."
Yes.
But remember,
he doesn't know where the goat thing came from, he claims.
Right. He hates the goat thing.
Well, I was thinking maybe it's not a devil thing. Maybe it's an orgy thing.
Worse. And like, it was adorable, but also like, what? Like when he snores and then he sort of like.
Yeah. I refuse to believe anyone that attractive is that gross sleeping.
Like the snoring was one thing, but actually my spouse was in the room when that happened and goes, "What is he doing with his mouth?"
Yeah. One other piece of fluff. The first time around watching this, we were talking about like, I think it was sometime during season 5, and we're like before Lucifer and Chloe actually get together, we're like, how is this going to work? Because she is a human woman, and a human woman cannot handle 10 times a day. And if Big Ben strikes 10, and he's Big Ben, how is that going to work? I mean, even with his ability to draw out her desire, there is such a thing as chafing. So,
I don't know.
I don't know. I have wondered about that, because that's 10 times a day. It's every 2.5 hours. And that's if you don't sleep. That's every hour and a half. You get out 8 hours a night. How? What?
That's why he's never been tied down to just one person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that kind of need requires an open relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the fact that he says to Eve, give a devil a break at the very beginning, just like,
let a devil recharge.
Yeah. What have you been doing, Eve? And like, is it acai berries?
All right. I got nothing. I got nothing for that. Nothing.
I'm glad that I can end on a strong note. So, all
right.
See you next week.
See you next week.